Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that we are all here together, even though it's just me right this moment. And if you're catching this on the replay, great. Then we are still together because time is outside of this third dimension, as we may or may not know. So welcome. Happy Monday. This is the Daily Medicine transmission for August 2nd, 2021. Yes, we have made it to August. It's really important that we remember who we are. So we had our third quarter moon over the weekend. Lots of incredible transits that are still happening and have happened. And it does appear and feel, to me at least, and I'm curious how other people are experiencing it, that it's just the focus is narrowing down. It's like we are going through a funnel and the everything is getting concentrated down to this tiny little opening at the bottom that we need to squeeze ourselves through. You can feel the belt tightening in some ways. And now that Mars is in Virgo, Venus is in Virgo, this is the sign where we get our shit together, right? That sixth house energy and the Virgo archetype is when we start getting into the soil and utilizing our root system that stabilizes us to who we are to actually do the work to acquire the resources. So we're going to get into all of this today. We have our reading to go through. I will go over the daily astrology. You have your study guide for this week's astrology that you can always pull up, take notes. And also too, I am now posting my 21-day commitment to Reiki attunements on social media. So if you're not following Catalyst Energies on social media, you can link to either Facebook or Telegram in the description box below. And that will lead you to social media, which is where I will be posting my daily attunements and certainly my experience of them and sharing that with you. And I really invite people, whatever their process is, I'm picking the Reiki attunements leading up to the Lionsgate portal and then into the next full moon, which is at the last degree of Aquarius. That is my system that I picked to commit to, but it's really about making the commitment to a practice that will encourage you to remember who you are and to connect to it, to commit to it. And it takes about 3 weeks, 21 days to really institute a new habit and to bring it fully into our daily routine, right? And since Virgo is all about that routine, that sixth house energy is all about that routine, this is a great time to start it. Not to mention the fact that the new moon at the Lionsgate is going to be really, really important, that we are all remembering who we are and we are in our full game, right? Because we are not the only ones that utilize the energy of these transits. Everybody that is an adept or an initiate or finds themselves to be on that path of utilizing this energy is using it for their own purposes. And it's really up to us as the starseeds, the light workers, the wanderers, the truth tellers. It's up to us to also be an equal participant in this process and bring our best self forward. So a couple things that I want to go over. Number one, of course, welcome back. Welcome if you're new to the channel, if this is your first time here, or if you're fairly new, thank you for being here. And as always, and whenever you interact with content like this, from independent content creators like myself, so subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing the video, regardless of what platform you find yourself on, that does actually impact the AI algorithm and how it spreads this message, suggests this video to other people, and it does actually work. I have people who have found my channel randomly because it pops up on their feed. And so every time you interact with the content in a positive way, it actually does influence that ability to spread the message and to have this content suggested to other people. So it really does help. So I hope everyone's doing well. It's been an incredibly intense weekend. We did have our third quarter moon. We went over this week's astrology in the astrology report that is already posted on YouTube and BitChute. So you can access that and go over it and see how things have transpired for you over the weekend with the third quarter moon, what to expect this week. Lots of transits with Uranus, lots of squares, right? Venus at least will come into a trine with Uranus in Virgo, but even with that trine. As much as it's supportive and functionally stable, they get a lot of traction from each other in a trine, an Earth trine. With Uranus in the mix, it usually is still going to be disruptive. And we have a lot of squares with Uranus this week with all the Leo energy, a lot of fixed squares. And of course, today the sun is opposite Saturn as well. So we're going to go into all of this astrology. But first, we're going to check out the reading for today, because we're really getting it. Why it's so important to remember who we are in this process is that things are now, like I said, it is condensing into this small funnel. It's, if you've ever, if you're into pour over coffee at all, this is the one way that I have been visualizing it and has been brought to my awareness. So you grind the coffee, right? You put all of it into your filter, your pour over filter, and you certainly can conceptualize this with like a normal coffee filter, but there's something about this tiny, it's like a funnel, right? It's this tiny opening at the very bottom that all of the concentrated essence of everything percolating through, right? We grind ourselves down. We put this, basic essence, our constituent parts down into the funnel. The water pours over and it extracts the very basic essence through this tiny little hole. And it feels to me, certainly that's how I'm experiencing it, that we are in this process right now, and it is a test. It is absolutely a test. And with that third quarter moon, we're going to be experiencing what that really brought up for us throughout this entire last lunar quarter as we prepare for the Lionsgate. And it was this moment over the weekend of having to really sit with the discomfort in a moment where how we feel and the way that we adapt to our reality in that moment of the moon's transit in Taurus was very much about our ability to create the happiness in the darkness as we accept and acknowledge and embrace the natural cycles of this material universe, right? That everything moves in a cycle. Everything has this cyclic motion and oscillation, if you will, right? Vibration is the oscillation of waves of energy, right? Either magnetic energy, light energy, sound energy. Oscillation is a wave function, right? Back and forth, contraction, release, the breath. So we trust this, we embed ourselves here. The moon was exalted in Taurus, and she had this moment where we feel and we adapt to our reality in this ability to really sink into it and to find the happiness in the darkness, because we accept that it's part of a cycle that is necessary. And what's very interesting is that we talked about this last week. Asteroid Ceres has now moved into conjunction with the star Alcyon, the main star in the Pleiades star cluster. Right? Alcyon was the main daughter of Atlas. So she's kind of like the mother hen of them all, right? She is the main sister in the seven sisters. And this fixed star of Alcyon rules the base of the neck, right? Where C7 and T1 meet each other, the cervical and thoracic spine meet each other. For all my kinesiology, massage therapy, anybody in the healing arts with the physical body, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That spot is pretty important. And the central nervous system, right? Alcyon rules the central nervous system. And as I talked about in the update for the Reiki attunements on the 21-day commitment, it's become very clear to me, and many other people are experiencing this. There are new chakras coming online, and one of them's right. It's at the base of the neck down to the thymus. And we've talked about the thymus before, how that is a chakra that has not been acknowledged, having to do with our nervous system, right? Having to do with our immune system specifically. So we see that it's part of this process of our nervous system now expanding, coming online even more, that we accept the contraction and release of the natural process. And Ceres, the asteroid Ceres that represents the goddess Ceres in Greek mythology, adapted to Roman mythology, she and many other ancient cultures are going to have some element of this archetype involved in their cosmology, which is that there is an inevitable contraction and release in these natural cycles, and specifically about the grain, the sustenance that grows, which is a very Virgo type of thing, right? Virgo time of year. So we can feel that these chakras are coming online. And I don't want to go too much into it because I spent time updating, addressing this specific energetic issue in the 21-day commitment cycle. So that's something that I would encourage you to check out on social media for yourself. But what I will say here is that we're kind of going into this contraction moment right now as these chakras are preparing to really open and upgrade. And it's been really painful, like physically painful, as these chakras come online. And it's, the physical body, just like a growth spurt, you have to actually just lean into this discomfort here as our central nervous system and these new chakras come online that are related to this area of our body. And the planet itself, as always, is supporting this process, but we have to allow ourselves to plug into her grid network, the matrix of the planet herself, to be more of a mediator for this process. So there is so much going on right now, and it feels like I said, the belt is tightening. The concentration of all of this is getting very strong, and you can see how this is reflected back out in the world around us, right? There's not, as the truth becomes more obvious and apparent, there is less and less space to work with in terms of finagling around that, right? And this is an uncomfortable process, and this is a great way to move into the segue into our reading, because what it initially represents, I think, for many people is a descent and a real confusion, and in some ways having, again, there's that sobering realization that we have to contend with. And today's astrology, especially the sun in an opposition to Saturn, right? These are serious power struggles between our own ego and full expression of self, and Saturn, which is that, paternal institutional boundary of reality that we can't really get away from. So let's look at the reading for today as I minimize myself here. And there we go. That makes a little bit more sense to look at. So as we're looking at this reading right now, of course, we're going to see that our Princess of Wands is our causal factor. Oh, we were really dancing in the flames of our passion, were we not? Here we go. Not that long ago. And now we find ourselves the Ace of Swords reversed in the heart of the matter here. And, the Three of Swords, for as much as we cannot stand this card, and it's a bitter pill to swallow, the sorrow of the Three of Swords, is a beautiful moment of realization and sobering realization. And the fact that it's upright really does suggest to me that there is something to be learned from this situation, that we accept it, embrace it, and there's not as much resistance to it as we may feel like there could be in a situation like this. So let's go through this, because we are being asked to reconnect with our karmic contracts, to remember who we are, where we came from, that we're attended to. And our real contribution here is to stand in our power and accept that all of this is part of this initiation process. So here we go. The Princess of Wands, our causal factor. Oh, look at her. Venus in the fire sign. So look at us dancing in the flames, so carefree and insatiable hunger for life. This was when Venus was in Leo, right? She is full on into Virgo at this point. So I think there's been a lot of reflecting back into where we've been. Also, too, with the upgrading of these chakras, there's a lot, and the solar weather that is just bombarding us, and the magnetic field of the planet being at, just like flatlined almost, very much at its baseline right now, without a lot of spikes to mediate this situation. So a lot of fire coming in, but this is us, in this very Venus and Leo, right? Especially this insatiable hunger for life. It's very playful. It's powerful. It's passionate. It's joyful. Look at her, like she is just riding and dancing in the flames. She's got this sunflower kind of energy with her wand. She has these antennae that are just coming off that feel like and look like this extension from this cat, which is a tiger, right? That she is inseparable. It's got this coiling effect that she is connected here to this incredibly feline energy that the tiger represents, but she's also very playful. And like I said, she's riding the wave of the flames, and there's a lot of enthusiasm, there's courage, there's beauty here. This is Venus and Leo is really exemplified within us at this card. And I can, certainly Leo season right now with the sun and Mercury here, especially because they just came into conjunction with each other yesterday. We're still kind of expressing ourselves through this. We're still, our minds are really conceptualizing things through this Leo energy. And it's about this passion and the beauty and the enthusiasm when we fully shine as ourselves. But this is Venus, right? Venus, that is our sensitivity to the material world, our relationships, our love, our value, all of these things that are wrapped up in Venus in Leo. So she has, in fact, really harnessed this animal energy that is at the base of our spine, that Kundalini energy, and she's been riding it. And so it's been the thing about the Princess of Wands is that she just as easily burns it all down as much as she brings in the object of her desire. And that's something that is very important to remember about Venus as an archetype. Object of her desire, right? She pulls it towards her. And in Venus, or in Leo especially, she uses this really charismatic, beautiful, insatiable, seductive energy to pull towards her what she desires, right? And it's innocent, right? The princess is innocent. She's younger. She's not very mature, but she is also very playful, and she is very sensitive, and it's all about how she feels, right? It's all about her sensitivity. So we see a lot of this that came in with Venus and Leo. And now we're kind of hitting this wall mentally. So here's our Ace of Swords. Now, the fact that, this is the beginning, the seed point of a new idea when it's upright like this. You can see how the sword is pointing up. It's kind of got this crown shape that is piercing through in the clouds, right? So this transcendent idea here that is just now finding its seed point. Well, here it is in its reversal. So there's some resistance to this new idea. Perhaps there's some coldness, right? It's not an aha moment up here, but it's kind of like, oh shit, an aha moment down here, right? Or intellectual dissatisfaction, right? We do not really, we're having a hard time wrapping our heads around this seed point of a new idea. There's cruelty through logic. Ooh, that's a big one, right? It is the sword that is just getting embedded into, embedded down, right? And if you're familiar with the sword and the stone and the Arthurian legend, right? He was able to pull the sword out of the stone, right? That was embedded in there, and only the most worthy were able to pull it out. So this energy here of just like it's stuck, right? Where the Princess of Wands is just like, yay, everything is in front of me, and I got all this endless encouragement and enthusiasm and passion and joy for life, and I'm gonna just dance in the flames of all of it. And it's like, bam, you hit this wall of just like, well, that's great, but now here is the mental aspect, that new seed point, and it is definitively locked into the ground. It's very definitively logical, cold, and it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm so inspired. It's just like, oh, this is so embedded right now. And it is a completely different energy than where the Princess of Wands is, right? She's just like, she comes up against the sword and the stone and she's like, it's not enough for just me to be enthusiastic and courageous and have this hunger, insatiable hunger for life. I actually have to be worthy enough to pull this sword out of the stone. Okay. So now, even though we have this at the heart of things right here, which is very palpable, I can feel it in myself. I'm going through it in my own way. Everybody else that I interface with is going through it in their own way right now. And it's something that we can't really get around if we are going to pursue what came here to do, our karmic contract, which was to pull the sword, our own sword out of the stone, right? So here we are energetically at the root, what is embedded in the subconscious, where we draw our personal power from energetically. Now, Atsum, we've talked about Atsum many times before, but if this is new to you, this is the Akashic Tarot, number 22. This term affirms a lot of different things. Number one, it affirms our strength and focus in the present, right? Being present of where we are. Number two, an acknowledgement that we've arrived at our goals. Number three, and we are on our way to the results we seek. And finally, be assured that spirit is always here for you. So this individual is learning. We had a lot of that energy last week, right? Learning, acquiring knowledge, research, concrete knowledge, truth, spiritual knowledge. And now, as we've been kind of accumulating all of that and engaging with it, and now we come at the heart of right now, which is the cold hard truth jammed down into the stone, right? Here it is, and it's not moving until we are worthy enough to move it. But this is allowing us to draw our power from this place that we are attended to at all times. As you can see, this person is surrounded by all these entities and an angel, right? And this person is aware of it, even though that she is researching, she's got her book open, but she does kind of like, her eyes are kind of diverted over. She's thinking and realizing somebody else is coming to bring her more information, right? And, he's smiling and looking over at them, not at her. So he also sees it and is aware of it, which is very interesting. So coming in where we can draw our power right now from this affirmation of our strength, of our focus, arrival at our goals, right? This is about manifestation by resonating at the frequency that you want to attract to you. And so when we root ourselves and draw our power from this place that we have arrived at our goals, that the results are here that we want. It affirms our strength in the moment, and it assures us that we are being attended to, even on the surface when it doesn't seem like it. And these are the moments when the belt tightens, right? When the focus starts to get very narrow, when we have to embed ourselves into the underworld of who we are, which is very Virgo nature, this is when we really come to have our faith reassured to us. But we can't, if we resist it by being afraid and worried and stressed, or just bypassing entirely, like just being, completely embedded in somebody else's reality and fantasy, then that also doesn't allow for us to be present. So this is really giving us the opportunity to be present in this moment, okay? To acknowledge that we are attended to at every moment. So this is an important place to be drawing our power from. And as we move through this sword and the stone type of energy, well, here's our king, right? King Arthur to the T. I never even made that connection till just I started transmitting. Here's our King of Keys, right? Entrepreneurial person with authority. So this is where we can contribute our energy. You know what I mean? The zenith of all of this, right? This is where our conscious attention goes to and moves out of us. And so the king, confident, astute, focused on our goals, right? This is somebody who is very much in confidence about who they are and what they're responsible for, and focused on protecting it, maintaining it, etc. Right? Keys. This is the physical reality. So it comes out as a confidence and authority around our material reality. There's Venus again, the material reality. So here's our Arthur, right? Arthurian aspect of ourselves, the king, right? This is the part of ourselves that is in fact able and worthy of pulling this sword out of the stone, right? And so this is how we can really contribute to the overall picture right now. Our conscious attention is embodying this, right? Embodying this confidence and this power and this authority over everything around us that we're responsible for creating. Okay, because now, of course, sorrow, right? The Three of Swords, nobody likes this. It is a distinctly Saturn in Libra energy, right? And Libra as a sign, as an archetype, has a very distinct Saturn quality to it because it is about the form of perfect relationship. That is what Libra represents. And it's specifically the application of our knowledge and wisdom of ourselves to the perfect form of relationship. And Saturn is just like, yep, there is, in fact, a very cold, hard truth. And the sorrow is about the dark side of understanding because it is losing beautiful but false illusions. So it almost feels as if at the heart here, even though we are not really, there's a level of resistance here to this ace, right? This new idea, how much it's embedded, right? How much it's stuck in the ground. Where we are at energetically, it's interesting that it will, in fact, like the effect of our cause and effect relationship here is still, even with this really powerful alignment, it's still taking us here. Right? We have to analyze, we're analyzing what other people prefer to ignore. And this is where the sorrow comes from. And it puts into plain light what hides in the darkness, what hides in the dark. And we have to face up to the truth. And it's very painful, right? And we have to make some hard decisions. And this is also the detection of a lie and treachery and deceit. And we know that this is coming about just layer after layer after layer, right? As soon as we realize that maybe something or someone or some influence has actually been working against the collective whole, even though they presented themselves differently, that's like you come to that awareness and then there's another layer and another layer and another layer until you get down to the core of who you are and realize that is the only truth. So it's not that people can't be positive influences, that there aren't people who are very much committed to truth and the presentation of factual evidence and not illusion, but truth. There are those people, but we also have to come to realize that, as much as we had all this kind of innocent dancing in the flames, which was really important, it has to be applied to an actual form now. And that is the challenge of Virgo in general. So we see this potential here of having to make a hard decision, coming to face the truth, a sobering realization. And as much as it's hurtful and painful, it actually is where it's a natural part of the process here, right? It is a natural part of the process of the three. The Three of Swords is, in fact, a balanced and strong, stable, right? The stable number of the three. And so it's an inevitable part of the journey, right? It's inevitable. And so we do need this rootedness in who we are and affirm our goals. We do need to express and be consciously aware of our identity as a worthy royal individual that is able to actually harness and wield that sword as much. You know what I mean? Because look at this. These may be bent and bowed here, but this sword is very straight, isn't it? And it's pointing up as well. And we want to take that sword out of the stone, and we want to, in fact, bring it up into its upright position despite the painful realization that it's going to elicit. So not easy energy, but we are prepared for this, and we are being upgraded as we speak in order to hold way more information as a result of these new chakras coming online. And it's very painful. So the guidance along the way here, as we navigate all this. Number one, here's 11 with 22. Okay, now this is important. These numbered connections are incredibly important. The fact that the Ark of the Covenant is reversed. Now look at this card. These are two people, right? They're sitting around a fire. They're relaxed. They have the Ark in the tent. It's nighttime. There are other tents with fires outside of it. This is a realization and an awareness of our sacred contract with our higher self and with God, what we're here to do, right? And a quiet and easy acceptance of it, right? When we have this ability to go around the fire, right? To sit in communion with each other in this relaxed position, knowing that the ark of this covenant is secure and safe and with us, right? We're fully, and it's open. Look, the tent flap is very much open. Now, reversed, we've broken our contract with our higher self. We're avoiding the karmic work, right? We put our higher purpose aside because it's too scary, it's too hard, we're too busy, whatever the reason. We've knowingly chosen to be directed by our fears. Ooh, that's a big one. That's a big one. Oh, that's coming through so strong right now. Knowingly chosen to be directed by fears. And we all do it. We all do it. I'm doing it right now for my own reasons. Everybody does it. This is to bring us back to that awareness and renew the contract. Wake up and renew the contract so that you can fully anchor yourself into this knowing and affirmation that we are attended to, that our goals have been arrived at. All of the things that ADSM truly represents. And we have 11 and 22. So this is a reminder. This is a reminder to renew that contract with the higher self, and not get involved into, directly chosen, being driven by our fears, being driven by division, like falling into the trap, right? And along with that is the Wolverine. And we've talked about Wolverine many times because this little critter is so vicious and strong and it doesn't look like it. And he says, you're a lot tougher than you think you are. And you have what it takes. We all do have what it takes to deal with this, whatever it is in our lives, right? And we have to dig very deep to discover those internal resources. And maybe we have to remember a situation where this happened before in our lives or in a past life or connected into a multidimensional experience so that we can dig deep and realize we have it all within us, right? We have it all within us. We have it all within us. We have to just remind ourselves that we have it all within us. So pay attention to the nuances in the shifting energies. And it's not very nuanced right now, if I can be really honest, right? The shifting energies is not nuanced at all. It's pretty in our face and literally in our bodies right now. So, but if you pay attention to the shifting energies, you're really tapped into it, then your inner wisdom can guide you to where you need to go in order to take the next step on your journey. So call up on that king, right? That king of keys, in order to really step into your power and fullness. And along with that, the elk. I mean, that's literally what this is. Stand tall and maintain your dignity. The king of keys is tall and maintains his dignity no matter what, and treat you with respect, right? Not because they are entitled to it because of the being in power. No, people treat you with respect because you respect yourself. You stand in your power and your own authority, and it transmits out. And along with that, remember that we are being this is nothing less than initiation into our higher self. So we have to stand as if we are embodying our higher self in physical form and realize that lower vibration relationships and stuff and circumstances are gonna have to go, aren't they? And that's part of the sobering realization of the Three of Swords, and how much resistance this is we're having right now to this Ace of Swords embedded in the soul, in the stone, right? We don't, we keep going back, right? And again, the karmic contract of the Ark of the Covenant being reversed, right? We have to let go of the things that are keeping us from acknowledging and fulfilling our highest contract to ourselves. And so the disciplines we create right now, very Virgo, are right now during this process will lift our service to humanity. When the sun comes into Virgo and Mercury comes into Virgo, now it's going to be fully embodied at that point. So Venus and Mars right now giving us the tools in terms of our warrior energy and the sacred mother, right? The emperor and the empress together in this sign. They are doing the work. And it's important that we realize that this is about creating disciplines. Again, this is why that 21-day challenge, because Sun will come into Virgo around right after the full moon, right? That full moon is at the last degree of Leo. And then from there, the Sun will come into Virgo right after that. And so these disciplines, these practices, this commitment to a routine that we bring in right now is going to be a big part of us lifting our service to humanity. And so we're being initiated. It does feel like our resources are getting, squeezed, and they are, because we need to narrow the gap. And somebody had a client and a colleague had made this comment about their own practice. They're like, I just feel like everything is that the focus is narrowing so much right now to be there's no room anymore, but other than to focus on this aspect. And if you feel literally squeezed right now, that's why. That's definitely why, and it's part of this initiation process. So the reading is pretty on point as far as I can tell of what's going on right now. I'm wondering how people are feeling. And here's our astrology. Here is our astrology. So one of the things I want to look at is check in with the, yay, Meg! You made it to a live. It's so good to see you. And I just popped over and checked out the stream. And so it's so good to see you. And it looks like you're having a blast where you are. Yeah, boat life. I love boat life. Boat life, lake life. Man, just even being in water right now is it's just so soothing and really takes the pressure off of, gravity on our bodies to get into the water. So I really recommend that. And thanks for the inspiration, Meow Meg, because that's how we do, right? We got to connect with each other and be able to be inspired by each other. We can't just be lone wolf anymore. As much as that feels like the right thing, in a lot of ways, this is not going to work in our favor for much longer. Yes, we do need to take this journey alone in terms of our higher self. That's totally true. And but at the same time, we have to be, we still have the Sun in Leo. We still have Mercury in Leo. We still have all of this Leo energy that's really, really present. And so acknowledging that it's about us shining forward, right? Being a full expression of who we are. And, Leo is inseparable from Aquarius. So a Leo truly does need a collective in which to shine for. And, but the Virgo time is time to get into the underworld of who we are and do that unglamorous work, the boring work, the self-care, the commitment when your ego is just like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather do this, right? It's important that we acknowledge this, okay? So let's get into today's astrology. Bring out your handy guide. Now, something that did not pop up on my radar until today, and I love these little surprises. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm not as, I got to get better at this, like astrology to know all these ins and outs, all these things. And really, though, the surprises that come about that I don't acknowledge or know about until it's time is usually just as beneficial as knowing everything ahead of time, right? If you knew everything ahead of time, sometimes you wouldn't make the decisions that you need to, and that's come up over and over and over. So here is August 2nd. This is our astrology. Now, what I will say here is that the moon was still in transit in Taurus very early this morning, late last night, depending on where you are, or coming into sunrise, depending on where you are. So while the moon was still in Taurus, we find here our opposition, the Sun and Saturn retrograde opposition. So something that was really fascinating to me, I learned by listening to Suspicious Observer's channel. Man, that guy is so awesome. His whole team, it's not just him, it's a whole team. One of the things that he brought up that just blew my mind is that he said something, and I have to go back and like really tease it out and make sure I heard it correctly, because I was driving when I was listening to it. It just blew me away. He's saying that there's verifiable, like actual data that suggests that planetary geometry can, which is astrology. Planetary geometry is a predictor for tectonic activity and geomagnetic forces, right? It just blew me away. And because we know that, but the fact that there is somebody in the science community like saying that out loud, and I got to find the research now. This is something that I really want to dig more into. But one of the things they talked about is Saturn in opposition to the sun is an earthquake predictor. So I'd be curious now to see how things unfold over the next day or so in terms of that with this opposition. So but in terms of astrology, right? So let's look at the archetypal resonance of this opposition, right? The sun representing our full expression of who we are. So the full ego consciousness shining forward, but in as a divine channel, right? In opposition to Saturn is very much the childlike nature, in a tense standoff with the paternal energy of Saturn, right? And so power struggles between ourselves and the structure and form of reality is very strong with this opposition, especially because Saturn is retrograde. So it's much more obvious. It's really something that is being internalized right now. These walls of reality that Saturn represents, the institutions, the crystallization, and we talked about this on the astrology report, this opposition, because Mercury just had this opposition. So it's this double whammy from Mercury and the sun right after their cazimi, right? After they met each other, then they, separated, and each bam, had this opposition to Saturn in Aquarius. So the consciousness, especially after that cazimi, wow. And it was really strong, like these upgrades from, our chakras upgrading, and the input from the sun right into our nervous system is substantial. And it's been, some people were invigorated. It really depends on where you find this in your chart. But it also, it's very intense, right? And it's more than most people are able to handle in their physical bodies, even at the most, you're at your most pristine. It is very difficult, but this opposition here is about our consciousness swinging wildly as it's opening, right? As the Kundalini energy like releases, is moving through us, the consciousness is swinging wildly, just like the swing or a tire swing on a huge oak tree. And it's Saturn that's the oak tree, right? It's Saturn that is this form. It's Saturn that is this deeply rooted structure. And an oak tree is it's got such a strong resonance with the Capricorn and Saturn type of nature. Very strong, very ancient, right? It is Saturn that is this oak tree that roots us and stabilizes, as this part of our consciousness is kind of all over the place, and you're swinging from idea and concepts and all, expression and all over the place. And both Mercury and this is part of the upgrade, right? There's more energy, more information, more data coming in to us on a regular basis. Saturn as that oak tree, right? It is, in fact, that stabilizing form that holds us as we're individually. And in Aquarius, it is the collective. It's the collective. And specifically, it is the idea, we've talked about this many times because Saturn has been in this degree now for a number of weeks, that it is about the ability to get into a quiet moment in order to receive the transmission from the collective and to get new inspiration. So the inspiration is coming through, and it is like I said, it's like being on a tire swing. It's really fun, or it's really thrilling, or it's really scary. You can think about it as big as you want, and especially with Mercury there, it's pretty big. So it's important, though, to realize that there is the collective itself is anchoring us and providing this structure for us to actually be inspired from it. But it requires us to kind of get to that 0 point, right? And it's the tree that is the 0 point. So yes, allow your consciousness to swing wildly, to be thrilled, to dance in the flames, just like that Princess of Wands, right? We're having fun. We're being joyful. Not everybody's experiencing this, but it also could be too much for our consciousness, with that Kundalini energy releasing. It kind of takes us into a place that can be really intense. But again, it's about getting to that 0 point, and Saturn is the papa of the astrological chart is in fact giving us an anchor, right? It is anchoring our individual consciousness into the collective. And regardless of where we each swing all over the place, the collective is inescapable, number one. And we are inescapable from our impact on the collective. And it also is grounding us and anchoring us to something. And it's really allowing us to, at that still point is when we'll really receive some sort of inspiration. It's not going to come from outside of us. And even if we're just like enjoying ourselves along for the ride, okay, or being scared, that's the other thing. You get too high on the swing and you're just like, oh my God, right? You're holding on. There's that meme of that's been going around for the last year and a half, and I'm sure longer, but it's been applied to, the last year and a half. And there's two people on the front of a roller coaster, and the little kid is like gripping for dear life, white knuckled, and the adult sitting next to them is like, yeah, going down the hill. That's a big, you can look at it. Some people are just like, oh my God. And other people are like, yes, this is like so thrilling. Either way, though, we have to be worthy of pulling that sword out of the stone. And Saturn is in some ways the stone. And Saturn is also provides the structure and the anchoring for us to actually, you know what I mean? Like you put your foot on there and yank it out. But it really doesn't come from that. It comes from endowment in some ways, right? Some sort of transcending power that comes down and gives us this inspiration of how we're going to do this. So that was right away. The moon hadn't even left Taurus. It was in the last degrees of Taurus. When feeling pretty sure of ourselves, right? Consummation, that peacock strutting around at that last degree of Taurus. And then comes at the same time is in a square to Jupiter. So there's that fixed square right there of Jupiter in the last degree of Aquarius and the moon, right? This, how we feel in this moment is adapting to everything that we've inherited as part of our journey on this planet. And Jupiter has gone from this beautiful, expansive, like all of the possibilities. I'm just going to expand on all of the possibilities, right? As now down to the laser focus of Aquarius, right? That's where Jupiter is. It's not as powerful and is not as benefic as it is in Pisces. But what it is doing is managing that. The power, right? The thunderbolt, the lightning of the spark of life that moves through the collective. That is what Jupiter is managing as it is retrograde within us. But again, square to the moon, where we're just like, yes, I am an extension of everything else. I am inseparable from the natural world of which I am part of. And there's nothing, and that's important too. Again, these squares are learning opportunities. They provide friction, but at the same time, we learn so much from them. So this is all, this morning before we even get to the moon in Gemini. So, which is what happens then. The moon comes into Gemini. It immediately comes into a conjunction with Ceres, right, at fixed star Alcyon. So there is like this big activation here in these chakras. They've been opening, they've been stretching. It's like a growth spurt. And now it's time to start really plugging into the planet's grid so that we can get them charged. And that's what's coming in now. is that they're getting charged. And this is our way of adapting to this. So then the moon comes into a square with Mars in Virgo now, right? Mars, the warrior, coming into the path of discipleship, the spiritual warrior that is coming into path of discipleship. 3 degrees of Gemini in a square to 3. This is a mutable square, 3 degrees of Virgo. So where... Wow. The moon, Gemini, 3 degrees of Gemini is very formalized mental perspective, right? It brings all of the discoveries that we get with the first degree of Gemini, the second degree that reminds us that we have to be open and innocent in order to receive, and to really... we have to have an innocence about us in order to really explore the depths of the human experience fully, and then comes into this structure and stable form of mental formalism, right? That rationalism. And what it can do, right? What it can actually do, the human mind, what it's capable of in our expansion of consciousness. So the square to Mars, though, because that's very much about the individual consciousness coming online, whereas where Mars is having to trust in our inner strength, having to trust that we are being what? Attended to. Oh, that's fascinating, isn't it? That we're being attended to. That there is a sense of there are guardian angels around us, invisible help and protection in times of crisis, right? And that just keeps building and building and building. This crisis period keeps building. So it's not new to us, but this square is challenging us because in the moment we're kind of adapting in this way of formalism, right? Of like putting the consciousness together and being like, oh, look what comes from our exploration and discovery in this realm of consciousness in light. Whereas Mars is like, no, well, that's great, but I'm bearing down in some ways, and part of my path of discipleship is learning to trust something so much deeper than my own mind. Oh boy, so much deeper than my own mind. This transit of the moon in Gemini is going to be very fascinating, especially as it crosses the Rahu today. That's a big one. Black Moon Lilith, by the way, is also in conjunction with the last degree of Taurus. So the moon crossed that point, and that means that Lilith is in here I'll show you. Lilith is also in a square to Jupiter. You can see it right here. It was in a square to Jupiter. Make sure that this is... Yes. And as you see, here is our kite again. The spine of the kite is the opposition between the Sun and Saturn and Mercury and Saturn. So this tension is in fact the spine of a kite, which is really a two-dimensional version of some sort of crystalline structure. I've been talking to somebody about this, and we've been really expanding on this concept, and that this a kite in general is a two-dimensional flat pyramid, right? And so you have a fire trine with Chiron and the south node and the sun, and then you have the sextile here as well. But this opposition is the spine. It creates the structure for the rest of the kite to be taut, right? And when it's taut and firm and stretched, it flies, right? And so this opposition is, for as much as it's a problem, like it's not a problem, for as much as it's a challenge, boy, oh boy, there is so much potential energy that can be gained from here to allow this kite to fly. Okay. So, but also too, you can see this whole complex over here in Black Moon Lilith as well, right? Black Moon Lilith retrograde. True Lilith is retrograde. So she also represents that deep part of ourselves that we don't even realize exists, that moves towards self-preservation, that is connected to the planet herself, that is our divine feminine, dark feminine, that will do whatever it takes in order to survive and preserve that part of ourselves and the earth. And when we are not aware of this dark feminine and working with her consciously, she takes over. She takes over and leads us to actions that we are deep down probably ashamed of, and you don't really want to acknowledge exist within us. We have to, though. We absolutely have to acknowledge the darkness within us, because that is, in fact, the shadow realm that the shadow realm that we have to integrate that is really going to allow us to be our authentic self. A lot of times the Lilith is just not even acknowledged, or we push it away, and then she just rears her head just like Algol. Which, she's going to come into a conjunction with Algol in the next couple days because she's moving retrograde through Taurus. Anyway, so you see here that this square with Jupiter. So it's not even just the moon at this moment, but something so much deeper, not just our emotional landscape, but this deep depth of self-preservation, of survival, of the dark feminine, also in a square with Jupiter today. So we'll go back over to here as we move through our transits for today. So we had this square with Mars. We are now moving towards a trine with asteroid Vesta. An air trine with asteroid Vesta. You don't see Vesta, but she is in Libra now, and she is moving along to 7 degrees. She's at 6 to 7 degrees, right? Here we are. 6 to 7 degrees. So this is much later today in the moon in a trine to Vesta over here. And this is that moment here where our consciousness can kind of release the monkey mind for just a moment and come into some sort of primordial faith in what is hidden but absolutely sustaining part of nature, right? It's the bucket and the well, and it's the acknowledgement that in the well is the water is life, right? But we have to actually take the bucket and put it down there, but we trust that the well will give us what will sustain us and fulfill us, which is the water. We have to trust it, and we do trust it. And this is the trine from to Vesta in Libra, which is, this degree of Libra is, again, this ability to kind of protect those parts of ourselves that is still coming online. So our higher self, protecting what those parts of ourself in our human nature that's coming online. And when we can, and this is a beautiful air trine, because again, the moon and how we feel in that moment is going to allow for trust, right? Trust that what we will be provided for, trust that we will be sustained. We have to put some effort into it, right? We do need to, in fact, we do want to guard these parts of ourselves from the onslaught of attacks in some ways, but we have the means to do it. And this part of Vesta is about the fire at the center of the community, the spark of transformation and spiritual connection that is at the heart of a community. So this is also part of it, the community itself, and the flame at the center is really able to sustain us and give us the courage and the tenacity in the moment to really protect those parts of ourselves that are still new, coming online, but also at the same time, trust. We feel this trust in what is needed in that moment. That's really beautiful. And I think that a lot of people are losing faith and trust as every day goes on. So, and then we move forward to when Juno, I forgot to tell you about this. This is the whole surprise that came forward, is that asteroid Juno in Sagittarius in conjunction with Antares, which is right in here, stations direct today. Oh boy, the heart of the Scorpion. We've been doing some serious work around this, haven't we? Betrayal, what our contractual obligations are, what our commitments are meant to be. Now Juno is going to station direct right over the heart of the Scorpion. Oh, wow. And she is a spiteful, she takes no shit, right? Juno will do what Juno does, right? Especially when the heart of the Scorpion. So we really need to be mindful of this, because when she's stung by the indiscretions of her husband, Zeus, boy, she does some shady ass shit, right? So we've been going through this retrograde, acknowledging these things within us, about the collective paradigm that we're committed to, that we contract with, what betrayal means. And with the heart of the Scorpion right now, this is going to bring it right to the surface. And now that Juno is stationing direct, right after that is when the moon comes into an opposition with her, right? And at the very same time meets the North Node, or Rahu. That means it's in a conjunction not only with Juno, This is late tonight, by the way, on the East Coast, or into the early morning hours as we move across the pond, right? This is important, right? So the moon meets Rahu is in an opposition to Ketu, the south node, also with Juno that is now stationed direct, right? So the quiver, right? Our quiver filled with arrows. The moon, we have a direct connection to this ability to pierce through our obstacles with our own consciousness, right? And if we go back to that square with Mars in Virgo much earlier today, where we are feeling the friction between, oh, my mind is, look at all the potential for what I can create with my consciousness, even on an intuitive level. Mars being like, yes, but we have to allow for some space to trust the strength within us. It's not all going to come from our consciousness starting to grow necessarily. Information is great, and our minds and our nervous system is important, but we also have to acknowledge Mercury or Hermes' other sign, which is Virgo, which is about getting down and analyzing, using our intuitive nature to analyze and put things where they belong. You know, hygiene is a big part of Virgo, and energetic hygiene is something I talked about, very early on, like in February or March 2020, about how important this is. And now that Venus and Mars are here, they're really activating this for us, right? They're allowing us to tap in a very material way, in a very, in terms of our sensitivity and how we act out. Mars is in this area. So if we go back to that, we have to allow space for this trust in our own strength that we are attended to. And now that the moon meets Rahu in this moment, wow, right? Giving us the ability to access that quiver of arrows, to use our mind to pierce through our own ego and its obstacles, and in opposition to Juno and the South Node. Again, we could really get easily caught up in the betrayal, in the sting of the scorpion, especially Juno stationing direct. Oh, now she's gonna act. And this is something that we have to keep in mind, that we do not get pulled into her ire and her anger at being betrayed. And it's going to be really hard, because there's a lot of this that's going to come to the surface. And here's our Three of Swords again, the sorrow, right? Are we going to utilize this Rahu, right? Aldebaran, in a conjunction with Aldebaran, Archangel Michael. Are we going to apply this on a very personal level to the ability to move through our obstacles with the clear intention here? Or are we going to get caught up in the betrayal of a paradigm that's just falling away anyway? And Juno, she's going to start moving forward again. And she's going to take with her this new paradigm that she has identified for herself, and she's going to apply it to every situation of understanding and big picture ideas, and this collective paradigm, of course, that Sagittarius represents. Ooh-wee. And then that, yes, we have that all happening at once late tonight. And then to top it all off, Mercury comes into a trine with Chiron retrograde. And this is going to, and the sun is right behind it. So in our minds, a lot of this is about really being able to harness our nervous system and our capacity for conceptualizing and manifesting, and eventually manifesting the reality that we want. This trine is a really good opportunity for healing this Chiron wound. It always is, but this in particular is about the quiet recollection of all of the things that we've been involved in. You know what I mean? So the mind is just like, oh, I remember that crisis. Oh, I remember that joy. Oh, I remember that crisis. I remember that joy, back and forth. It's like a retired captain of a retired sea captain being out on the ship and being like, all those experiences. Now we have the opportunity to just kind of like gather the energy within ourselves by connecting to all of those experiences. And in a trine to Chiron in Aries, right, we can kind of take ourselves out of the direct line of fire within ourselves of that adolescent frustration, right? The growing pains of this process in our minds, if we cannot allow ourselves necessarily to be pulled into that. This is going to be really hard with Juno and Antares and the South Node all wrapped up together at the same time that the moon's going to cross the North Node. This is not going to be easy, but there's a lot of support and traction that they're getting from each other in this fire trine today. So, and as you see, by tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, Venus is going to be in her trine to Uranus, right? This Earth trine at the same time, pretty much. Very, very strong. So, and as we know, this, when we see on the other chart here, let's go back just real quick. Chiron is part of this kite, right? This two-dimensional pyramid that is here. Chiron is in a sextile to Saturn, and Saturn is in a sextile to K2 right here. And so we know that we can apply this energy in an investment type of connection to harmonize with where Saturn is. And also Rahu is in a trine. It's a little bit wider, but it's still in a trine to Chiron. And then again, the trine to Leo, and this energy in trine to K2 as well. So Chiron is definitely part of this mix in a really strong way today with the Sun and Mercury. And so these are all opportunities. See, this fire trine is very stable in and of itself. And so it's very easy. It'll be very easy to get caught up in, like I said, where Antares and Juno and K2 are. Especially with the Sun and Mercury in Leo, right? The combustion of and expression of who we are and our mental capacities. Very easy here. So we want this this opposition. We want the tension that's here because it keeps this kite stable. It gives it a backbone, right? It gives it a backbone so that we don't just unconsciously and passively fall into burning ourselves up with this fire trine. And again, it's the sextile from Saturn at the top of the kite that really is where we get a lot of our potential to harness this energy for what it actually has to offer us. So the astrology is pretty remarkable today as well. So I'm going to leave it there, guys. I think that's plenty to work with today. It at least gives us some affirmation of what's happening right now, what to expect as we move forward. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading or energetic support, one thing I wanted to mention with the Reiki attunements, healing attunements can be done distance-wise, just like sessions, just like giving and channeling Reiki can all be done over distance. It does not have to be done in person. So if you're interested in a healing attunement and Reiki sessions, that's definitely an option as well. And so you can go to catalystenergies.net, you click on the services tab. One thing I want to mention too is that I've been customizing a lot of work for people because I have a lot of different tools in my belt, right? And I put these packages and these services together to utilize them in a certain way, but I'm very open to customizing these services and these tools for people's specific needs. Just like when I was doing body work full time, that's definitely, I would use a lot of different modalities with people, from craniosacral and deep tissue and Reiki, lymphatic drainage, myofascial, right? There's a lot of different modalities that I can offer, and we can customize it. So that's an option as well. You can link to my website in the description box below. And guys, have a great day. Take very good care of yourself. Hydration is important. Give your body what it needs and listen to it because it is upgrading right now. And you want to be able to support it. And you also want to be able to move stuck energy through you. And again, Reiki is really good. All these movement art modalities, yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, just getting out in nature and moving your body, swimming and being in water is incredibly important right now. Really, really, especially with that fire trine, we want to make use of it. So we don't want to extinguish it, but we definitely don't want to burn ourselves out, which is a very strong potential right now. So meditation and prayer it's a must at this point, whatever it is, to get back into alignment with that singular experience of the higher self, it's important. It's beyond important now. It's a requirement if we're going to make it through without burning ourselves out completely. So again, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to me, and you are the lifeblood of this channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment if you want to support this work. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourselves. Bye.